For a session presented by Amazon Web Services, please welcome Managing Director, AWS Travel and Hospitality for Amazon Web Services, David Peller, and Chief Product and Technology Officer for Travelport, Tom Kershaw, in discussion with Skift Research Editor, Jeremy Cressman.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeremy Cressman, Research Editor at Skift. In this 25-minute session, we're going to explore the state of digital transformation in travel and hospitality. First with a 10-minute presentation, and then with a panel featuring two industry leaders from Travelport and Amazon Web Services. To start, let's set the stage. Why does digital transformation matter to our industry? Starting in 2020 and continuing to 2021, many parts of the travel industry have been evolving. Travelers had new demands, and companies needed new ways to operate in a fast-changing, often uncertain environment. But this period of rapid change has also created rapid innovation. For consumers, we've seen growing adoption of services like contactless technology. And for those of us in business, we found ways to be more productive, to work smarter, and to use data to make better decisions, all aided by digital tools and services. In fact, I think this has been one of the big unifying themes of this period. This growing embrace of digital tools to transform how we do business and serve our customers. But how well do those of us in the industry think we're doing in our efforts to become more digital? So in this presentation, we're going to explore some of the data from a recent survey completed by Skift and Amazon Web Services. To really understand where we are today with digital transformation in travel, I think it's helpful to give a snapshot of our current environment. And as many of us have experienced firsthand, this period since the pandemic began has really been a wake-up call for the travel industry. First, there have been new demands from customers. They're changing where they travel, how they book trips, even their expectations about what a great travel experience looks like. This is forcing all of us in the industry to adapt. In addition, I'd say our industry is finding new ways of working. Many employees have spent this past year working remotely, like we're doing right now, learning new safety protocols, and figuring out new ways to get things done, often in an environment with more uncertainty than ever before. The third point is about prediction. Our industry makes assumptions about when people buy our products, where we should be selling them, and what we should charge for those products. But I think the unpredictable nature of the pandemic threw those assumptions out the window, and we've needed new ways to cope as a result. Finally, the pandemic has introduced innovation related to our company business models, creating new opportunities to experiment, bring new products to market, and explore new ways of distributing those products. These four themes may not initially feel interconnected, but I think the truth is that they are increasingly related, and that is all thanks to digital transformation. So in our last slide, we talked about four areas of travel and hospitality that were disrupted by the pandemic. And the solution to many of these disruptions has been a change in strategy, right? Our businesses have needed to move faster, be more flexible, work smarter, and gather better information. And one of the best solutions to enable those capabilities is through this process of digital transformation. Many of you are probably familiar with this term, but if you're not, digital transformation refers to the process by which businesses across all industries adopt digital-first tools, processes, and data collection to help run their organizations, bring their products to market, and also to interact with customers. Digital transformation is, of course, not a new concept. This is actually a process that started decades ago. But I think what's different about the past year and a half is how quickly COVID-19 has accelerated that adoption curve for all of us. As we see in this quote from a recent McKinsey report, the pandemic had a significant impact on adoption timeframes for digital transformation. Various efforts to transform businesses were accelerated by as much as 3 to 4 years because of the pandemic, according to this research. And I think the reason, again, for this acceleration was directly connected to the increasing benefits many companies saw from embracing these types of tools and processes. So we now know that this process of digital transformation has been accelerating during the pandemic. But we still don't have an explanation for why companies are moving so quickly to integrate these digital practices into their organizations. And I think the reason is that by making their organizations digital first, companies in the travel industry have gained several important benefits. One benefit is it's easier to meet their customers' rapidly changing needs. Travelers over the past year needed flexibility to change their plans, and many wanted contactless experiences that allowed them to safely social distance. By shifting the delivery of those services towards more digital means, travel and hospitality companies could actually quickly adapt to these shifts. The second benefit I'd say is efficiency. By shifting our operations and internal communications into the digital realm, travel and hospitality companies can share information more easily, improve employee coordination, automate repetitive tasks, and cut costs for the delivery of their products and services. The third benefit comes in the realm of business analysis and decision-making. Having a digital-first approach allows you to gather more information about how the business is performing, and that in turn makes it easier to forecast. Finally, is this benefit of flexibility. This, of course, is an uncertain time, and we don't really know what the future is going to hold for us in the future. So being more digital actually offers us greater flexibility to adapt as the industry continues to change. So we've now made this case for why I think digital transformation is important. But the next question we need to ask ourselves is, are those of us in the hospitality and travel industries following through? How is our industry actually doing in its efforts to become digital-first businesses? To find out, Skift collaborated with Amazon Web Services earlier this summer on a global survey about the digital transformation process in the travel industry. We polled over 1,000 travel and hospitality executives around the world from all sectors: aviation, hospitality, online travel agencies, cruises, and restaurants, just to name a few. These were, of course, self-identified decision makers with direct influence on technology and IT systems in their organizations. And we asked them to assess their company's efforts to become digital-first organizations. So what do we find out? Let's actually run through some of the highlights from this year's results. The first topic to explore is whether or not the travel industry thinks digital transformation is an important topic. The past year and a half has been a period where organizations had to learn to do more with less. There were changes in budgets, staffing levels, and customer demand, among other factors. I think in spite of these challenges, organizations of all shapes and sizes believe that digital transformation is indeed essential. More than 90% of survey respondents told us it was very or somewhat important to their businesses. And as we're going to see on subsequent slides, that mandate has actually had important effects on efforts within the industry to encourage innovation, investment, and fundamental changes in how they do business. Another important topic has to do with the impact of the pandemic. We know how disruptive the pandemic has been to our lives and to our work. Did that disruption delay or actually slow down efforts in the travel and hospitality industry to further digitize? The answer appears to be a resounding no. For most respondents, it was actually the opposite. On the left, we see that more than 80% said it was much more or somewhat more important to proceed with digital transformation in spite of COVID-19. And on the right, you'll notice that the pandemic has actually helped many companies improve how they do business. More than 80% strongly or somewhat agreed with this statement. So clearly, I think COVID-19 has helped push digital transformation forward rather than actually slowing it down. I want to move now to the topic of data in the travel industry. We know that data can be used for all kinds of reasons in our business: learning about customers, tracking how efficiently our companies get work done, or forecasting future market conditions, to name a few examples. One of the key learnings in this year's survey is the importance of collecting, analyzing, and acting on that business data. In a digital environment, it's much more important to use our data to inform our decision-making. And on this point, we again see overwhelming agreement from our survey. 90% or more confirm the importance of using data more effectively as part of the digital transformation process. On the same topic of data, one of the growing problems of digital-first organizations is they have much more data than ever before. More, I would say, is usually better, but I think it also is creating a new complication for many of us as decision makers. It's harder to find meaning in all that data. To solve that problem, more travel and hospitality companies are now relying on technologies like machine learning, artificial intelligence, tools like this. You can think of these as digital tools that help us identify hidden patterns and find meaning within large amounts of data. And that interpretation matches with this year's survey. 84% of our executives said these are powerful tools that help them analyze data and make better decisions as a result. In addition to the importance of data, another key theme of digital-first businesses is their focus on constantly improving the customer experience. We talked before about how customer expectations have been changing during the pandemic. But by having a digital-first approach, those in the travel and hospitality sector can find faster and more effective ways to serve those customers better, even when their needs are changing. And we do see signs again in our survey that COVID-19 has dramatically increased efforts by many in our industry to improve how they serve customers. Just over 80% of respondents said the pandemic actually led to operational and customer experience changes that will last well after the pandemic is over. So far, we've now talked about data and also the customer experience. For our next topic, I want to explore the travel industry's interest in upgrading and also improving our technology. One of the biggest challenges for businesses is actually finding the right systems and infrastructure to support a more digital-first process. And typically this happens in the form of corresponding technology investment in tools like software or in cloud computing resources like those offered by AWS. And in this year's survey, we see growing evidence that in the past year and a half, there's been an important period taking place to prepare for whatever is going to come next in our business futures. More than 70% strongly or somewhat agreed that they used the period of the pandemic to make upgrades to their technology. Thinking about this topic of technology investment, there's also been a growing shift in recent years to embrace cloud computing. Historically, technology investment was focused on buying physical computing assets that you owned and you maintained for your own business. But more recently, that approach has been changing. Today, more companies collaborate with outside firms like AWS who allow them to access computing resources on demand with pay-as-you-go pricing. How much progress has the travel and hospitality industry actually made with its adoption of cloud computing? So far, it appears there's plenty of room for here to grow. Over 60% of this year's executives said their organizations were in the early or middle stages of moving their businesses to the cloud. I think this suggests a big competitive advantage for the companies that make this important shift. Before we wrap up, I want to talk about one last point about this impact of talent and organization on the digital transformation process. After all, success with digital transformation isn't just about the software you choose or how you analyze data. It also depends on finding great people and building teams that are able to successfully adopt those digital-first processes. How is the travel industry actually doing in this regard, though? One sign of progress is that the level of seniority that's involved in digital transformation efforts is going up. A good rule of thumb is that when more senior members of a company are involved, it's a sign of the importance of that discipline. And on this point, we again see in this year's survey that it's going all the way to the top of most companies in the travel industry. More than 60% of respondents said that the C-suite was responsible for digital transformation at their organizations. So that provides a brief summary of some key takeaways from this year's Skift Digital Transformation Survey. As you can see, COVID-19 has certainly accelerated a lot of adoption of digital-first strategies in our industry. But we also recognize that there's going to be continued need to evolve, and there's lots of exciting work yet to come. For anyone that's interested in seeing all of this year's survey results and digging more into the data, there's much more to explore. You can actually download a free copy of this year's report by going to skift.com/AWS. So now let's turn things over to our panelists to continue our discussion. So David, Tom, welcome to the Skift Global Forum. We're really excited to have both of you here today.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
David, maybe you can set the stage for me here. We're now about a year and a half into this totally new business environment. It was created by the pandemic. What new business demands has this placed on companies in the travel industry, would you say?
Look, while disruption isn't new to travel and hospitality companies, I think the breadth and scale and duration brought about by this pandemic has led to a sustained shift in the way that travel and hospitality companies plan, manage, and operate their businesses. Gone are the traditional and consistent patterns of demand and predictable supply, and change has come to the established go-to-market channels for distribution and sales. And when demand fell, and it remains challenging in many parts of the world where travel restrictions remain today, travel and hospitality brands had little choice but to captivate customers, perhaps with dreams of what was to come. And so these brands have enhanced their digital channels. They've invested in new and improved websites, mobile applications, digital services and experiences, delivering improved automation, efficiency, and customer self-service. And as travel reopens, and with the ever-evolving customer expectations, brands that invested in digital are really well prepared to better serve their passengers and guests to meet the evolving needs around contactless self-service and more. And so at Amazon Web Services, the world's most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud platform, we support travel and hospitality businesses of every size and segment around the world and their leaders to transform, becoming more agile and resilient. And we've observed firsthand how much innovation has been stimulated from this period of disruption. And that's why we partnered with Skift for the second year in a row to better understand and showcase the inspiring efforts and contributions made by so many.
David, you make a lot of important points there. This unpredictable demand, these shifts in customer behavior. I'd like to bring Tom in and ask for your perspective because you've been in the trenches through all this. Tom, I think this process of digital transformation, like I said, it's not a new process. This has been going on for a while. But I'm wondering about how the past year and a half has impacted the digital transformation process for Travelport, and if so, how?
Well, it's accelerated dramatically for us, especially in the last year or so. And I think the main driver for us is the need for more automation. What kind of happened in the pandemic is a lot of our customers and ourselves had fewer resources, fewer people to throw at problems. But funnily, the number of problems didn't go down too. It was the resources you had were less, but the problems seemed to continue to evolve. And what's happened now with the recovery is even more interesting. A lot of folks in our industry and in all digital industries can't find all the people they need to get back to ramp, and travel is coming back. People are starting to get on planes and go places and do things, and it's just hard to find enough staff to do to meet that need. It's a lot harder to ramp back up than it is to ramp down, I think. And so we have to use software, and we have to use machines, and we have to use data to solve problems we used to throw at people. And that really is one thing about the travel industry. We used to throw problems. The whole motto was give people a whole bunch of information to let them decide. We can't do that anymore because we don't have enough people to do all of those tasks. The other thing that you mentioned in your report, which is super interesting, is the products we offer have to change too, because it's a different world. People expect different things. They want to know about health and safety on flights. They want new options as it relates to eco-friendly tourism. So the type of travel that is coming back is different. And with a diminished resource pool, we have to do all the things we used to do, plus all these new things, and you can't do that unless you automate.
So automation obviously been a key theme at Travelport, it sounds like. And you mentioned data as being an important aspect of what you're doing now, Tom. Obviously, data has always been an important part of business, but I'm wondering if your approach to using data has evolved at all during the pandemic. I know automation and maybe pattern matching has become more important, but what's your take here?
Yeah, well, data is everything that we're doing. It is the key to our success and to the industry's ultimate success is how we use information. Again, I think the old model was get as much information as possible and dump it on people. Like it's the fire hose approach to management. That's how travel used to work. Now, the new models, we need to give them suggestions. We can't waste their time with 80 billion options when we know the chances of you going to this city on this airline is not a thing. So we're going to have to, the customer base of the future and the customer base that's returning to travel wants us to solve problems for them, not just give them this big dump of information. And you mentioned it very, very well in your presentation that it's not a problem of not enough data. We have way more data in this industry that we know what to do with, and most of it just sits there like gathering mold and stuff. So we have to take the data we have and harness it and turn it into insights, intelligence, and suggestions for our users. And the other thing we need to do that we've not been super good at is tailoring it to the individual needs. We tend to solve problems on macro levels here, not to the specific issues of an individual. So every traveler and every seat on every airplane and every bed in every hotel room is a unique opportunity, and we have to look at things that way.
Tom, I was very interested in an example you used of giving a customer too many options when they search for a flight, right? You got to give them the right examples. So David, I want to ask you about this point about customer experience, right? How do you think the expectation of customers have changed during the pandemic? And I'm wondering how that's impacted the technological investments they need to be making to make sure they're serving those customers that have these new demands.
So absolutely, expectations have changed. And if we start with passengers and guests, amongst other things, their travel patterns and requirements have changed. And let me highlight three areas. I mean, first, the idea of clean or addressing the evolving regulatory health and safety requirements. So these have become top priorities and taken on a very different meaning over the past 18 months. Second is the idea of flexibility, the ability to change or cancel reservations given the fast evolving and uncertain outlook. It's become standard. And then experiences, brands that have focused on guest or traveler experiences and enabled automation or self-service of packaged content and services in new ways have really stood out from the crowd. And so as travel and hospitality companies adjust to meeting these ever-demanding customer demands, I think technology is going to be at the center of all of these capabilities. And so as we look back over the past 18 months, travel and hospitality companies have turned to the cloud in particular to help drive the transformation agenda. And whether that's companies like ATPCO or Finnair, Korean Air, McDonald's or Star Alliance or Wyndham Hotels and Resorts, and of course Travelport, they've all benefited from the agility, the elasticity and scalability of AWS, and used the AWS cloud to accelerate their innovation and digital transformation.
Yeah, I'm thinking back on an interesting example I heard from a customer of how they scaled up their contact support center at this time when everybody was calling in, everyone needed to change plans because of the pandemic, and they were able to do that because they had this technological backend to help them with that. So really interesting. David, I want to ask a follow-up question. It's a little bit more about technology investment. What do you think have been the positive impacts of digital transformation for the companies that have actually embraced it? And what technologies do you think people are investing in now that are going to last beyond this period of transition we're in right now?
So I think the latest report demonstrates this, but perhaps the greatest impact of all has been the level of executive commitment to digital transformation and the pace of innovation that follows from this level of executive attention. This period of disruption has shown all of us how essential reinvention is for travel and hospitality companies. And talking at the end of last year, Andy Jassy, now CEO of Amazon, spoke of 8 keys to reinvention, but I'll highlight 2 specifically.
Okay.
He talked about leadership's will to invent and reinvent, and then secondly, speed. And so travel and hospitality companies have embraced digital transformation throughout this period, both for survival and for reinvention. And I do think that the technologies born of these times are going to stick around and improve the way that we fly, eat, stay, and experience the world moving forward. And so whether that's contactless service, such as IHG's Studio service that enables guests to manage their in-room experiences through their own mobile device, or seamless check-in deployed by Wyndham Hotels and Resorts on their mobile app, or if it's the use of machine learning and artificial intelligence by Star Alliance with their transfer decision tool and passenger-facing connection service, which provides more efficient, personalized traveler experiences, or what you were just alluding to, Jeremy, the use of cloud, I think, to transform guest contact centers with Amazon Connect, delivering customer experiences and optimized operations for companies like Priceline, who are now much better able to handle those unpredictable spikes in volume while innovating faster.
Well, I think I'd like to leave things by asking you both about your predictions about what's next for digital transformation. And Tom, I think it'd be great to hear from you first. Where do you plan to take Travelport next? And what do you see as the keys to your digital transformation strategy as you kind of proceed with this process?
It's using machine learning tools is the number one priority that we have to be able to automate processes and let software make decisions and help people find things they're looking for. I also think data federation is going to become increasingly important in our industry, where cooperation is, this is an end-to-end experience. It starts from the agent all the way down to the airline. And after you've booked is when the real fun begins. And so we have to be able to share information from up and down the chain. And that's one of the things we like about cloud computing is instead of having to move data around, which is not a fun task for an engineer, we can share it by using the same infrastructure. And the permissioning and security considerations that we're developing now as an industry is going to open up, it's going to create the ability to really share data in a fair, safe, and privacy-centric way. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming.
David, what's your take? Any last words on what you see as far as digital transformation in the future, the near future?
Jeremy, the pandemic's shown just how fast expectations can change for passengers and guests alike. And at Amazon, we love that customers are divinely discontent. I mean, their expectations are never static. They keep going up. I think that's human nature. And because of that, companies can't rest on their laurels. And what works today might not resonate tomorrow. So I look at this and say digital transformation is a journey. It's not a destination. And for sure, as we look ahead, many of our discussions with travel and hospitality leaders are going to continue to center on enhancing the guest experience and driving operational efficiency and resilience. And that happens through the use of data and analytics, machine learning and artificial intelligence, and the Internet of Things. But Jeremy, as a truly concluding thought, I think if there's one really humbling lesson from this pandemic, it's pretty hard to predict the future. But if there's something we do know, it's the companies who allow themselves to be agile and innovative will be well prepared to build what's next for travel and hospitality. And I certainly can't wait to see the innovations yet to come.
Agility, staying ready to adapt. This process is going to continue to evolve. David, Tom, really appreciate having you both at Skift Global Forum this year. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.